Betrayal does not always break a window. Sometimes it rearranges the furniture so quietly that one morning you wake up and nothing is where you left it. My name is Charlotte Hayes. I am 34 and I design interiors for people who want their homes to look like they have nothing to hide. 2 weeks ago my father died. Car accident, the official said, quick and clean. The obituary called him a philanthropist with impeccable taste and the kind of vision that builds a skyline. The church was full of people who said his name as if it were a brand. I stood between my mother and my brother and tried to remember how to breathe. After the funeral my mother handed me a folder and told me to meet her at Hayes' house the next morning. She did not ask. She never does. Eleanor Hayes manages grief the way she manages money, by assigning it a room and closing the door. My brother Marcus kissed my cheek and whispered that he was glad I was home, then left before anyone could ask where he was going. He has always measured family in favors. Hayes' house waits at the top of a hill with its windows like watchful eyes. I grew up in its rooms, learned how to be quiet in them, learned how to hear what people mean rather than what they say. The study still smells like cedar and ink. Sunlight fell across my father's desk as if it were proof of something gentle. In the folder my mother had given me lay the will. I had expected a list of instructions written in the legal voice that says everything while saying nothing. Instead I found a single sentence beneath the formal lines. For matters not enumerated, see Charlotte. I read it again. The attorney cleared his throat and explained that a sealed addendum existed in a safety deposit box, accessible to the executor named within. The executor was me. My mother's lips did not move but the tendons in her neck did. Marcus smiled as if he had been told a good joke and wanted to see how it ended. When the attorney left, my mother poured tea into cups that matched nothing else in the room. My mother believes mismatched china looks honest. She set a cup in front of me and another in front of Marcus. She did not sit. Your father made a mistake, she said. He wanted to teach you responsibility. Instead he has handed you a storm. You will need to follow my instructions if you plan to keep what belongs to us. What belongs to us? I asked. Reputation, she said. And what cannot be sold? Marcus leaned back in the leather chair that had been our father's and spun it once, slow as a clock hand. Come on, Lottie. You cannot pretend you do not see it. He chose you to clean the mess. You always loved a project. Do not call her that, my mother said. She is Charlotte now. I slid the folder into my bag and stood. I will go to the bank, I said. I will read whatever he left. Then I will decide. My mother's gaze met mine without blinking. Decide quietly, she said. At First National the manager ushered me into a private room with a lock that clicked like manners. The steel box sat on the table like a small coffin. Inside lay an envelope with my name, a ring that did not belong to my mother, a handwritten ledger bound with twine, and a key with a taped tag that read Willow Storage B17. The letter began with hello, not with dearest. My father was not a man for sentiment on paper. Charlotte, if this is in your hands it means I failed to finish what I began. You will be told that I am a man who kept secrets. You will not be told that some secrets were promises I made to people who trusted me when I did not deserve it. The ledger will show the truth of my accounts. Your mother will want to close the book. Your brother will want to spend what is left. You must not let either of them decide. If you go to Willow Storage you will understand what cannot appear on a balance sheet. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope because my hands were shaking and I did not want anyone to see. I lifted the ring and held it up to the light. The stone was small and plain. The inside of the band bore initials that were not my mother's. O.R. Olivia Reed. My mother's sister. My aunt. She had moved away when I was 12 and returned for holidays like a comet that remembers the orbit but not the weather. I had never seen this ring on her hand. The ledger was careful and meticulous, more honest than any speech I ever heard my father give. Debits, credits, transfers. Names in the margins that were not clients, but neighbors. A fund that moved through accounts like water, invisible if you did not know where to look. The dates bled into the months before his death. At the back someone had pressed a lavender sprig so flat that it looked drawn. I drove to Willow Storage with the key in my palm like a coin you do not want to spend. B17 opened to the smell of cold dust and motor oil. Cardboard boxes labeled with numbers sat beside a metal cabinet that had been locked and then forgotten. On top of the cabinet, someone had left a single photograph in a cracked frame. My father stood with Olivia on a porch I did not recognize. He was not smiling. She was. The date on the back was from the year she left town. In the cabinet I found contracts with my father's signature and amendments in another hand. My aunt's. Properties listed in a trust that did not carry our name. Small houses on quiet streets, a bakery space, a strip of derelict storefront that could be made new if someone loved it enough. Each deed had a sticky note with a first name. Ruth. Mrs. Navarro. The notes read paid in full and do not evict. An envelope at the back contained copies of checks from a company I had never heard of, Hayes Foundation Holdings 2, made out to the same names. Under the envelope lay a sealed packet stamped private. I opened it and found photographs of my father and my aunt at a lawyer's table, and a copy of a will older than the one at the house. The older will left a significant portion of our assets to a charitable structure that listed Olivia Reed as trustee. The revision that had been executed last month removed her entirely and shifted those assets back to the primary Hayes Trust. The signature line bore my father's name, but the ink looked different. The witness signatures included a man I knew only by reputation, Thomas Kane, my father's old business partner who liked to brag that he could make problems disappear faster than champagne bubbles. I took pictures of everything with my phone while my heart hammered like I had been running. When I stepped out into the late afternoon, the sky had turned the color of tin. I locked the unit and stood there long enough to feel the cool air press against my lungs. Then I called my aunt. She answered on the second ring and said my name like a story she used to tell. Olivia has the kind of voice that can make even ugly truths sound like they were waiting to become music. I need to see you, I said. I was waiting for you to ask, she said. Your father promised you would. We met at a diner that makes good pie and serves coffee strong enough to wake the parts of you that grief sedates. Olivia looked exactly like herself, which is to say exactly like my mother would have looked if my mother had ever allowed herself softness. She wore no ring. When I set the plain band on the table, her gaze flicked to it and then to me. He left it in the box, I said. I gave it back to him years ago, she said. He never threw things away. Even the things that hurt him. What were you to him? I asked. The question tasted the way metal smells. A partner, she said. In a venture your mother did not want to exist. We built a net under people your father's company had displaced. He was good at acquiring. I was good at stitching together what acquisition tears. He felt guilty in a way that made him generous. Your mother felt practical in a way that made her ruthless. Why were you written out? I asked. Because your father changed his mind, she said, and then shook her head. No. Because someone changed it for him. He told me he would fix it. Then he died. I told her about the ledger, about Willow Storage, about the checks with the second foundation name and Thomas Kane's signature on the witness line. I told her about my mother's face when the attorney said I was executor. I told her about Marcus and the way he spins when he thinks no one is watching. Olivia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stirred her coffee slowly and said, Eleanor will not allow a public mess. Marcus will not allow a private one if money is at stake. Thomas will allow whatever keeps him near the vault. Your father loved you, but he built a house that requires good lies to keep standing. What do? I asked. You decide what kind of foundation you want to live on, she said. If you honor your father's first intent, you will have to fight your mother and your brother. If you honor his last signature, you may be honoring a forgery. Either way, you will lose something you think you need. I walked back to my car with the ring in my pocket and the taste of burnt coffee on my tongue. When I reached Hayes' house, the lights in the study were on. My mother was at the desk, reading something I could not see. Marcus stood at the window with his phone to his ear, whispering like a man who had found a map and was deciding which treasure he wanted first. I placed the ring on the desk between us. My mother looked at it and did not touch it. Where did you get that? She asked. From the part of his life you did not control, I said. She closed the folder in front of her. Control is a word people use when they are afraid of collapse, she said. You do not yet understand how much work it takes to keep a family from sliding into the sea. Maybe the cliff is the problem, I said. Marcus hung up and turned with a grin that did not reach his eyes. So, sister, what did our sainted father leave us? A choice, I said. He laughed. Choices are for people who can afford them. My mother did not laugh. She looked at me the way surgeons must look at a patient who insists on telling them where to cut. Then she said the quiet thing out loud. If you open this door too far, Charlotte, wind will take the rest. I am tired of closed rooms, I said. And of air that never moves. That night I did not sleep in my childhood bedroom. I lay on the couch in the study with the ledger on my chest and listened to the house breathe. Close to midnight my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. If you want proof about Thomas, check the contracts in the lower drawer. Red folder. Back pocket. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered, then got up and did what the message asked. The drawer stuck and then gave. The red folder waited like it had been patient for years. Inside were copies of purchase agreements for the properties in the second foundation, all reassigned last month to a holding company with a name that translated as nothing. The back pocket held a note in my father's hand. 3 words that made my skin go cold. Do not trust Marcus. The next morning, I woke to the smell of strong coffee drifting through the house. Marcus was already in the kitchen, feet on the table, scrolling through his phone like the world belonged to him. Our mother stood at the counter, immaculate as always, a silk blouse without a wrinkle, her hair pinned like she was about to host a press conference. You're up early, I said. I had calls, she answered. People want to know what the Hayes family plans to do now. They look to us for stability. For assurance. People, Marcus muttered, not looking up. You mean investors? Clients? Those who still think Dad's name meant something. Mother's eyes cut sharp enough to make him flinch. Then she turned to me. Charlotte, did you retrieve everything from the deposit box? I set my coffee down, heart ticking faster. Yes. And? I pulled the envelope from my bag, sliding the letter back toward myself before either of them could reach. He left instructions. He wanted me to see certain things. To decide. Marcus smirked. You see. His making her the judge. Daddy's favorite daughter, the executor of his grand puzzle. This isn't a game, I snapped. But my mother's expression didn't shift. What else? She asked. I hesitated. If I told them about Willow Storage now, it would vanish before I could return. If I mentioned the ledger, it would be shredded before the day was over. Instead, I chose something smaller. He left a ring. It belonged to Aunt Olivia. The silence that followed was heavier than words. My mother's face hardened, her lips thinning like a line drawn too tight. Marcus laughed again, softer this time. Olivia, he said. I always wondered why she disappeared when she did. She was trouble, Mother said flatly. And if your father kept something of hers, it only proves his weakness. Or his love, I said quietly. The teacup in her hand rattled against the saucer. Do not romanticize his mistakes, Charlotte. It will destroy you. I pocketed the envelope again and rose. I need air. When I stepped outside, the autumn wind felt colder than it should. The world looked the same, but nothing felt steady anymore. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret. I drove without a destination, but my hands took me back to Willow Storage, back to the metal cabinet with its boxes of promises and betrayals. I opened the ledger again and traced my father's handwriting. These weren't just numbers. They were names. Lives he had touched, debts he had tried to pay in his own twisted way. And at the very back, tucked inside the cover, was something I had missed the first time, a folded scrap of paper with just 4 words written in his hand. Trust no one completely. My phone buzzed. A new message, from an unknown number. If you want answers, come tonight. Bring no one. 11 p.m. The porch on Alder Lane. I stared at the message until my hands trembled. Alder Lane was where Aunt Olivia used to live. And I realized someone out there wanted me to know the part of the story my mother would never tell. The porch on Alder Lane hadn't changed much since I was a child. The white paint still peeled at the railings, and the swing creaked when the wind moved it, though no one had sat there for years. Olivia's house had always carried a ghostly presence, half forgotten, half feared. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, my coat wrapped tightly around me. The night air was sharp, every sound louder than it should have been. When I reached the porch, a figure stepped from the shadows. It wasn't Olivia. It was Evelyn Cross, the neighbor who used to bring us pies when we were children. She looked older, thinner, but her eyes burned with something that hadn't dimmed. "You came," she said softly. "You sent the message." She nodded. "Your father left things with me, things he knew your mother would never let you see." I swallowed hard. "Why me? Why now?" "Because Margaret has spent 2 decades making you her mirror," Evelyn said. "And sooner or later, mirrors crack." She handed me a small tin box, the kind you'd expect to hold recipes or receipts. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me. The oldest was dated the year he died. I read the first line out loud, barely above a whisper. "My Charlotte, if this reaches you, it means I failed to return." Evelyn placed a hand on mine. "He wanted you to know the truth. He didn't die, Charlotte. He ran." The words slammed into me, louder than the night insects, louder than the creak of the swing. Ran from what? From debt. From disgrace. From your mother. He made mistakes, yes, but Margaret, she made them permanent. She told you children he was gone, but she knew where he was all along. She kept him hidden. My chest ached. "And you why keep this secret?" "Because I owed Olivia. And because your father begged me. He said you deserved to grow up believing in one parent, even if it meant hating him." I pressed the letters against my chest, as if they might anchor me. "And Caleb? Does he know?" Evelyn's lips pressed thin. "Your brother has been circling the truth for years. But Caleb isn't looking for answers. He's looking for leverage." As she spoke, headlights swept across the street. A black car slowed, then rolled to a stop in front of the house. My pulse raced. Margaret stepped out. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she approached, every line of her body radiating authority. She didn't look at Evelyn. She looked at me, at the box in my hands. "So," she said, her voice steady but her eyes sharp as glass. "You found your way into the ruins." I tightened my grip. "You lied to us." "I preserved us," she countered. "Your father chose destruction. I chose survival." "By erasing him? By erasing us?" Her gaze flickered, but only for an instant. "You're not ready for the full story, Charlotte. But if you keep digging, you'll discover that not all truths deserve the light." I wanted to scream at her, to demand everything she'd kept buried. But the box was warm in my hands, and the letters were real, and Evelyn's face told me I had only scratched the surface. Margaret turned back to her car, pausing only once. "If you open those letters, remember, love and betrayal are often the same thing, just written with different ink." The door shut, the car pulled away, and I stood frozen on the porch, my breath caught in my throat. For the first time in my life, I realized my mother wasn't just hiding the truth. She was protecting herself from it. I didn't sleep that night. The box sat on my kitchen table like a living thing, humming with everything I was afraid to know. At dawn, I made coffee I didn't drink, stared at the sealed envelopes, and forced myself to open the first one. The handwriting was my father's. I recognized the slant, the way his letters leaned too far left. "My dearest Charlotte," it began. "If Margaret told you I was gone, then she has chosen the safer lie. The truth is uglier. I failed your family. I took what wasn't mine. I thought I could fix it, but the debts grew teeth. If you ever read this, know that I left not because I didn't love you, but because love wasn't enough to keep us alive." My chest felt hollow. I read another, and another. Each one painted a picture of a man cornered by his own mistakes, embezzlement from the family company, debts owed to men who didn't forgive, nights spent hiding in motel rooms under false names. He had begged Margaret to leave with him. She refused. She told him to disappear instead. By the fourth letter, my hands were trembling. He wrote about Caleb, about how he feared my brother had inherited his hunger for shortcuts. And then he wrote about me. You are your mother's strength and my shame combined. You'll either save this family or burn it down. And I'm sorry for that burden. I shoved the letters back into the box. My stomach churned. Save or burn? What kind of choice was that? When I arrived at the ward house later that day, Caleb was already there, lounging in the sitting room with a glass of whiskey at noon. He grinned when he saw the box under my arm. So, the secrets are out, he said. Let me guess. Dear old Dad wasn't a saint. Did you know? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. He swirled the glass. I knew enough. Enough to know Mom's been sitting on a gold mine of leverage. The accounts, the letters, you could buy silence with those. Or sell them to the highest bidder. I stared at him. These are our lives, Caleb. Not bargaining chips. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Everything is a bargaining chip if you play it right. Margaret entered then, calm as ever, though her eyes flicked to the box. Charlotte, she said, there are things in there that can't be undone. You can't unlearn them. You can't unsee them. Are you sure you're strong enough to carry them? I don't have a choice, I said. Her lips curved into something between pride and pity. Then let me warn you. Your father wasn't just hunted by debts. He was hunted by the people he betrayed. And some of them don't forget. Caleb laughed. Always the dramatics, Mother. But I felt it, the weight in her words, the shadow that hung in the corners of the room. The kind of threat that didn't fade with time. Later, when I returned to my apartment, another letter slipped under my door. No envelope, no signature. Just 7 words written in unfamiliar script. You're digging graves. Stop before they're yours. I dropped it on the counter and stared at it, my pulse hammering. It wasn't from my father. It wasn't from Margaret. Someone else knew I had the letters. And someone else didn't want the truth to see daylight. The warning note burned in my pocket all day, the words echoing every time I caught my reflection. I didn't tell Margaret. I didn't tell Caleb. I didn't even tell Evelyn. Instead, I kept moving, like stillness would give whoever wrote it a clearer shot. That evening, Evelyn called. Her voice was low, urgent. Charlotte, you need to know the whole truth before you decide anything. Meet me at the old church, the one near Wren Street. Don't bring your mother. Don't bring Caleb. I almost said no. But some part of me already knew she was the only person willing to risk telling me the truth without twisting it for her own survival. The church was half abandoned, the stained glass cracked, the pews coated in dust. Evelyn sat in the front row, a folder resting on her lap. When I slid in beside her, she handed it over. Inside were copies of bank statements, legal drafts, and letters Margaret had never shown me. Your father didn't just steal, Evelyn said. He cut deals. Dangerous deals. When it collapsed, people came after him. Your mother convinced them he was dead. It was the only way to stop the blood. She forged papers, moved money into silence accounts, and told you children the lie because it kept you safe. I shook my head. Safe? I've spent my entire life building walls around shadows. That isn't safety. That's prison. Evelyn's eyes softened. And yet you survived. Maybe that's what Margaret wanted most. For you to survive where David could not. Before I could answer, the church doors creaked open. Caleb stepped inside, slow clapping. Beautiful story, Evelyn. Really touching. But what Charlotte hasn't told you is she has the letters now. The originals. And people would pay to make sure those never see daylight. My blood ran cold. You followed me. Of course, he said, grinning. You're too predictable, sis. Always chasing the truth like it's going to save you. Truth doesn't save. It sells. Evelyn stood. Caleb, this isn't a game. The people your father crossed. I'm not afraid of them, he cut in. I'm not afraid of anyone. Because now I have what they want. I stepped between him and Evelyn. No, you don't. Because the letters aren't leverage. They're evidence. And if you sell them, you're signing your own death warrant. His smile faltered just enough for me to see the boy he used to be, the one who wanted too much, too fast. Then he straightened, defiant. Maybe. Or maybe I'll finally be free of all of you. He stormed out, leaving the church echoing with the sound of his footsteps. Evelyn touched my arm. Charlotte, you can't stop him. But you can decide what to do with what you have. That night, I sat at my desk with the letters spread before me. My father's apologies, my mother's lies, Evelyn's warnings, Caleb's hunger, it all blurred together into a single, suffocating weight. I drafted 2 envelopes. In one, copies of every letter, addressed to the authorities. In the other, nothing but ashes. In the morning, only one would leave with me. I didn't know yet if I was the daughter who would burn it all down or the daughter who would try to save what was left. But for the first time in my life, the choice was mine, not Margaret's, not Caleb's, not David's. Mine.